Please stop rushing through life. I rushed through my life because I felt I was behind, but I never found out who I was chasing after. I watched my friends go have fun and experience hardships, but sometimes I watched with envy and it made me feel sick. And the thing was, I always wanted more in life. I believe it started when I was in middle school. During that time, I had a mental instability because I didn't feel like I was worthy of continuing living in this world. And I believe the reason why I felt that at such a young age was because I was constantly comparing myself to other people, and other people were constantly, showing off to me because they knew that they'd be better than me. I'm not farming pity points, but back then I was fragile and quite gullible, and someone would call me a sensitive kid, and to this day I would say that I still am. I'd cried for days, cried to my parents about being bullied and all these things that I went through. I'd tell the adults, they'd say that they'd help me, and they didn't. What I did was give the kids that were bullying me a stern talking to, if anything. And that made me realize that I want to get away from these people as fast as possible. That what, I want to start rushing through school. That I want to finish through the school day, get home, and just and just wallow in my own sorrow. When I was like age 10 or something, terrible things. I would say it's a quite terrible start to being a quite terrible start for any kid, having to sort of live every day and go, hey, damn, I'm just not fit for this world because people make fun of me. And at the time, school is really your whole world. School is the only thing you do for most days. Maybe on the weekend you go outside and have fun, but the majority of your life is school. And I think it's quite hard for many kids to realize before it's too late that school isn't just the only thing that matters, and that school isn't your life. You'll have many things to do once you become an adult. And even now, as I've become an adult, I would use money to cover up, how I felt about myself, that these would cover my shortcomings, but they never did. If anything, I was running away with money. And now, I have thousands of dollars at my disposal, and I'm no one to share with. I'm not trying to flex at all. That took many years for me to get this kind of money, and now I'm just sitting here wondering, what do I do next? And the thing was, it took me a long time for me to understand that for me to feel better about myself and feel whole and feel connected was that I had to delve deep into myself. I had to discuss with myself, sit with myself and realize that, I have these weaknesses, but, I also had my strengths that I can play to, and that these don't define me as a person. And I had to sit and confront myself and what I thought I would live my life as. But, I just wasn't special, and I feel like I lacked the ability to communicate with people. And I think that really drove me up a wall when I was younger, that I wouldn't be any that I wouldn't be anything because I didn't have the basic necessities of being able to communicate with people without messing up my words or something else of that sort. I think was when I was younger, this really stretched relationships, especially with my parents. They were quite young, and they worked many hours, long hours, and I think as a kid I could understand that they were tired, but I always internalized them as not caring about me or something else of that sort. But I'm sure they definitely did, and this probably hurt them, mentally, seeing their kid, someone that they gave birth to and held over their head as this amazing child, a gift from God, if you must say. That he's hurting, he's hurting, and we can't do anything about it because we're too tired for coming from work, and that maybe at some point it's just a kid, being a kid, being over dramatic, all these kind of things, and I can understand where they're coming from because I do believe in some aspects I definitely was being over dramatic, but I do kind of feel that I was missing that sort of parental guidance when I was younger. But I cannot fault them for this because this is something that I had to go through by myself, and I'm sure if I had relied on others, it might have not ended so well or gained the results that is now, which is me, posting on YouTube and feeling quite good and having accepted all my faults, and now I'm able to work with my strengths and play with them. And now I'm an adult, I'm trying to atone for what I've done to other people, and I feel quite bad about this because I want to fix myself now after 10 years of torment that I've done to other people. I've had people that I considered friends, I'd ghost them for summers, and I'm sure they'd wonder what I was doing with my life because I was so like depressed and acted depressed in that sort of nature, and many people knew it. many people would joke about me being someone who would do bad things at school, but honestly, I would never do those kind of things. I was just, sad and depressed, if you could say. I know it's quite cringe for me to say it out loud, but that's generally how I felt. And now, I think that kind of impacted the way my voice is. It's quite, I guess monotone, if you do want to say. And I've seen a couple people have posted and commented about this, that this is literally just my voice. And I think I kind of just made my voice like this because I just felt that, once I'd grow up, that I wouldn't have any sort of excitement in my life. And I just kind of like gave up at some point when I was younger. And I just don't even want to put effort into my voice because it literally hurts for me to do that most of the time, which is quite stupid if you really think about it. But, that's just, I think, what it sort of describes and vocalizes, the extent that I felt that I was like a piece of shit and that I wouldn't understand anything. But like, I'm genuinely not trying to farm pity points or anything of that sort. And now, I'm trying to be better as a person, and I want to. And now I'm trying to spend time with my family, make new friends, spend time with friends that I have now, and try to get them to understand that this is how I act, this is who I am. If you don't like it, then shit, too bad, my guy. I'm done trying to be, I guess, like that submissive kid, that submissive kid that I once was, and now I want to be, so we can actually defend themselves and talk about themselves and not have to worry about opinions of other people, because that's something I struggled with for nearly a decade now, and I know I can do better, and now I plan to become better, and I would use this YouTube channel to express how I feel, and not be scared about whatever I want to talk about. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.